They said it was impossible, but I did it. Well, I kinda did it. It's complicated. But if I'm gonna tell you the whole story, we have to go back to the beginning. While some people paint florals or other people paint landscapes and portraits, my subject of choice is ballet dancers. Being a dancer myself and a theater nut, it's what inspires me and it's what gets me. So as you can probably imagine, as a ballerina painter, I use a lot of pink. Pink tutus, pink stage elements, pink tights, pink point shoes. You get the picture. But here's the thing. My favorite pink is the most controversial pink ever. Opera pink. Now, before you throw your beverage at your phone or your computer screen or wherever it is you're watching this video, let's address the elephant in the room. Now, we're probably gonna have two types of reaction here. First reaction, opera pink, so what? Second reaction, she's using fugitive colors, scandalous. So let's address our, hey, what's this? Our elephant in the room. So what's the deal with opera pink? And what was this impossible thing that I pulled off? So for you non-pigment nerds out there, opera pink is one of the most fugitive colors out there. Fugitive meaning it fades, like really fades. Under sunlight, under gallery lights, heck, even under standard kitchen fluorescents, opera pink is notorious for its inability to stand up to UV rays, which in the art world is like saying you're building your masterpieces on a foundation of sand. So I've been looking for a viable alternative to opera pink for as long as I can remember, and the most common replacement that most people will recommend is quinacridone pink. It can also be labeled quinacridone rose, quinacridone magenta, quinacridone coral. The precise wording doesn't really matter all that much because technically the name for the pigment is PV19. PV19 is lovely, but it ain't opera rose, and I'll tell you why. Technically, nothing can really be opera rose because opera is PV19, but with one extra ingredient that makes it the superstar that it is, and that is fluorescent dye. Think highlighter pen color. And dyes, my friend, fade faster than it takes me to get a sunburn on Miami Beach. And that's saying a lot. So there are two categories of substances used to add color to things, whether it's your paints, your jeans, or your car. These two categories are pigments and dyes. Pigments sit on top of things, like when you sprinkle glitter on glue. They don't get absorbed into what they're coloring. They reflect some colors and soak up others. Now dyes are different. They're like when you spill fruit juice on a shirt. Dyes are tiny molecules that dissolve completely in a liquid. One of the biggest differences between pigments and dyes is how long their colors last. Pigments tend to stay bright and colorful for a long time because they're solid and they don't easily fade. But dyes can fade faster, just like those fugitive colors I was talking about. But before we embark on this journey, let me introduce you to another one of my prized pink inventions. This one, unfortunately, won't fit in your paint box, but it will give you radiant, luminous, lit from within skin, and it's a device made by my partner for today's video, Foreo Sweden. It's a deep facial hydration device called the UFO3, and it is my skincare MVP. As someone with dry and very, very sensitive skin, it can be really hard to get the skin hydration I need on a daily basis, but the UFO3 is like giving your skin a giant, delicious glass of water. It has multiple customizable treatments like thermotherapy, cryotherapy, and T-sonic massage that you can program on the Foreo app. And what you do is you pair the device with one of their targeted masks so you can get a range of benefits from hydration to anti-aging, all in under 5 minutes. In fact, It's actually clinically proven to increase skin hydration by 126% in just 2 minutes, which as a result reduces the appearance of wrinkles. Oh, and while I did say mine was pink, it comes in several super cute colors too if pink isn't your jam. So Foreo is offering our community an exclusive opportunity to save 30% simply by clicking the link in the description box below. And for the first 50 people, there's an added treat. Enter the coupon code HALAC10 at checkout for an additional 10% off. Thanks again to Foreo for sponsoring today's video. Now let's get back to the mission at hand. So coming back to this whole opera pink business, a couple weeks ago, I decided it was time to engineer the perfect pink. The pink to end all pinks. The perfect bubblegum Barbie pink to outlast and to outshine my prized opera. And that is what I'm going to share with you today. I started with my first clue, PV19. But hold on tight because it wasn't a walk in the park. Not all PV19s are created equal. Some are vibrant, some are dull, some lean towards blue, others towards red. But wait, hold on. Base to match to what? There are a lot of opera pinks on the market. After much deliberation, I narrowed it down. Winsor & Newton and Sennelier emerged as the top contenders. Sennelier, with its rich, velvety pink, had a certain allure. It was like the velvet petticoat of Marie Antoinette, which I know is totally historically inaccurate, but I digress. With my goal in sight and my starting point established, it was time to step up the game. How could I intensify this hue without losing its essence? I decided to experiment with other colors I had on hand. It was tricky though, because the more pigments you add, the more you increase your chances of getting mud when you're mixing. You see, each pigment you add to a mix contributes its own set of personality traits. Hue, saturation, value, and texture. And the more pigments you add, the more of those characteristics can start to interact with each other. It's like having too many personalities in a room or mixing too many flavors of ice cream and ending up with a weird taste. Who knew that mixing coffee, lemon, and bubblegum ice cream would make for such a weird combo? It's the same thing for paints. So we want to get the number of pigments down as much as possible. I'm thinking 2 max. So I started digging through every bin and drawer. Tubes of paint stashed away 5 years ago. I had to pry caps off, pull things out with palette knives. It was becoming so overwhelming when it hit me. About a year ago, I had unboxed a gift from what would become my paint-making pen pal, the one and only Roman Szmal. You see, me and Mr. Szmal had written to each other about all things paints and watercolors for some time now, and I remembered a gift he had sent me. I reached for my monumental collection of Roman Szmals and pulled out the pan of glowing pigment. It looked right, but light fastness was still a question mark. So I pulled up my laptop to send him an email all about my little project. I waited. Days went by, and then the email came in. I was onto something because he had tested out my mix, and guess what? I had the approval of the master himself. I could see the finish line. Simple but elegant. My favorite kind of solution. 2 ingredients, both Roman Szmal, naturally. I went for Roman Szmal because of how stable, how vibrant, and how finely ground his paints are. Not to mention that most of his paints are single pigment. Remember that weirdo ice cream flavor we talked about? We would avoid that by keeping the number of pigments down. So my PV19 base was his quinacridone magenta color, and into that I layered 1 additional pigment, quinacridone warm scarlet, PR207, a scarlet with a dizzyingly intense glow and reddish hue. The reddishness would shift my magenta slightly more into a rose, and the brightness and transparency of the paint would help me here as well. It was the key to my homemade opera. And if you're gonna say, no, Margot, they are not identical. I taped mine to the window and then I brought out my magnifying glass, my microscope, and my stethoscope. That doesn't even make sense. I would just tell you that you might need to do some yoga, maybe some meditation, chill out for a little bit. I kid you, but you might wanna maybe relax a little bit. Anyway, it's pretty darn close. So if you are a botanical illustrator or a fashion illustrator and you've been looking for a nice alternative to opera pink, something that is bold, that has a lot of saturation, but that you don't have to worry about in terms of light fastness and sensitivity to UV rays, then I would highly suggest giving this mix a try. And speaking of comments, let me know also in the comments below what your favorite fugitive or non-light fast color is, and if you have been able to find a successful alternative to that color. Because who knows, we might be able to find an alternative to that color together. As always, thank you so much for watching and for joining me on this wild goose hunt. And I'll see you in the next video, artists.